Welcome or welcome back. I am Lisa. If you're buying a first time home or primary residence, this one is more for you. There are some homes that you should never buy, no matter how good the price looks. These homes look fine at first glance, but quietly they destroy your budget. Today, we're talking about houses you should never buy. They destroy your peace and the resale value. Now, I want to be clear. Very savvy, sophisticated investors can sometimes make these type of properties work. There are some exceptions to this, but this is homes you should never buy. For most everyday buyer, though, these are a hard no. Let's get into it right now. Homes you should never buy. Let's talk about the 12 red flags that most buyers miss until it's too late. Never buy a home that looks renovated but feels rushed. We call that lipstick on a pig flip. The reality is that fresh paint and trendy fixtures can hide outdated wiring, plumbing shortcuts, or structural neglect. These sloppy finishes, when you see them with your own eye, if you see them, that's a red flag. Usually it means that unseen work is even worse than the sloppy lipstick on a pig look. Fast flips without permits or documentations or are resale nightmares because eventually you end up having to pull those permits or even worse, tear down something and put it back to its original. Those are nightmares. So definitely these would be a hard no. Cosmetics are cheap, but fixing hidden systems, that's not cheap at all. Those can run into the upper thousands, 10, 20, depends. Next are the age tax property. So what this means is that the charm does not cancel out the risk. Older homes often come with lead pipes, knob and tube wiring, asbestos, and foundations that no longer meet modern specifications or standards. Like they don't have post tension slabs that allow the foundation to move a little with the property. Even well maintained properties can require six figures updates over time. If they're in a historical district, then you're limited to how you do things, and that could even add more expense. So these properties that are over 100 years old, they tend to be expensive, and that would be a hard no on these ones. You're not buying history, you're buying a liability when it comes to these type of properties. Then the over personalized homes. These are homes where they have built-in fish tanks, where they have other built-in features that aren't or workable for you. They're hard to get rid of. These would be, I remember at one point, my husband had a very large fish tank that he made by hand. It was beautiful, but the fish tank took up so much of the living room. It was that big. And then keeping up with the fish and the whole thing, it was a hassle. But imagine that being built into the property. This wasn't built in, and it was an issue not being built in. So being built in can definitely be an issue. When you look at this picture here, this is an outdated feature where they have like a little pond in the living room. That's an issue. Nobody wants that in modern day. So these are highly customized theme rooms, unusual layouts, or hyper-specific built-ins. I've mentioned a few of them. They limit your future buyer pool. It feels unique at the time and really fun, but it becomes a demolition project for tomorrow, and it can be quite costly. This one is a hard no. If resale requires undoing the house, values definitely suffer. Now, environmental or subsurface issues, those could be oil tankers underneath or some other hazardous materials that are underneath that have never been dealt with. And those are definitely a reality that has to be dealt with. So if the land is risky, the house is risky. Homes with underground tanks, flood exposure, soil instability, or prior contamination carry long-term financial uncertainties. There's parts of the country where homes have been built on hazardous land, and some of them have been dealt with by lawsuits, class action lawsuits with the government, and they've taken care of it, but others have not. And people are still dealing with the risk, health risks to children, to pets, to elderly, to anybody actually that's in your family. Even when these issues are resolved, the insurance doesn't always see it that way. So it can increase your insurance and liability in the house, and future buyers won't reap the benefit with this type of home. This would be a hard no. Land problems don't age well, and they don't negotiate well either. The next would be homes on busy arterial streets. I'll never forget, there was an agent in our office years ago, and he had a home in a sought after luxury area. But the home was built on a busy street. The street was always fairly busy, but when it was originally built, it wasn't real busy. And then it became a major street. The home was built there. It was on the corner, and he couldn't get it sold at the price that the other homes had comped out for, or similar, because it was on this busy street and on a corner. That became a problem. So you don't want to deal with that. You're dealing with noise that won't go away on these busy streets. You're dealing with nuisances, possibly like the home on a corner on a busy street. You have, people doing whatever they want in your front lawn. It's just not fun. Homes on major roads or highway feeders face consistent traffic noise, safety concerns, and resale resistance. That's for sure. Any price discount you get today often turns into longer days on the market later. So that's when you go to sell, for sure. And this is why it's a hard no. Location penalties compound over time. Now, let's talk about visually and physically encumbered properties. So, like this picture shows, this property has power lines above it. You can't change what you see. You can't change the value. The power lines aren't going to be moved anytime soon. Homes next to power lines, utility easements, drainage channels, or industrial corridors face permanent appreciation caps. They're less desirable, and they can be a problem. Some people even think the power lines there affect your brain waves and can be a health hazard too for you. Even a perfect house can't overcome permanent negatives. So this is a hard no. Again, permanent negatives create permanent discounts, for sure. Psychologically stigmatized homes. Now, in some states, they don't have to let the buyers know if there's been a crime, death, or any of those type of tragedies that have happened on the property, with a few exceptions, and even the ones that don't. There's some caveats to that. But just that psychologically stigmatized homes are an issue. Homes associated with highly publicized events, deaths, or severe neglect often sit longer and sell for less, even after renovations. Disclosure laws vary, but buyers' hesitation is universal. Some buyers feel like it's a curse to move into a property like that, and they won't do it. Some people, even if the state doesn't have laws where you have to disclose, they'll search. It's easy to search now through ChatGPT and so forth. They'll search sources to see if there's any publicized deaths, and they'll ask the sellers or the seller's agent about it. Why is this important? Because the neighborhood gossips also tell. If you move in and you find out that this incident happened, or you're thinking about purchasing and you talk to the neighbor, you can find out easily, regardless of the disclosure laws in the area. So this would be a hard no. Perception affects price, whether you believe it or not. It does. Now, let's talk about unstable or poorly managed HOAs. This is the reality. Low dues can be a red flag. You look around and you're like, why am I paying, or why would I pay these dues when you look at the neighborhood? Or what is the HOA doing? An HOA with weak reserves can have the HOA fees too low and they can't take care of what they need to. Deferred maintenance, that definitely shows in the neighborhood. Or poor management creates financial risk that you don't control. You can't control that once you're in there. Special assessments and lenders issues often follow. I did have a client who had a property like that, and this property had low dues. It was not the you could see deferred maintenance in the community, and eventually the roads got really bad just leading into the property, and they had to repave them. And the people not only paid their HOA dues, but additional assessment that they hadn't even planned on. So that's one example. So this would be a hard no. You don't control the biggest financial decisions, and you can't. A hard no on this one. The next would be title or ownership red flags. If ownership isn't clean, walk away. Walk away. Unresolved liens, probate complications, boundary disputes, or unclear access rights can delay or completely derail resale. Yes, some foreclosures or auctions clear these issues, but not all of them do. So this is why this is a hard no. Legal messes outlast renovations. I had a client buy a short sale in that property. When we looked at it initially, it was nice. It needed some work, some cosmetic work. By the time he got into that property, it had been broken into. It was just it almost looked a little bit haunted by the time he was able to take possession of the property. So these are some risks. So think about that. This is a hard no. Legal messes outlast renovations. Remember that. Declining infrastructure. So as you look through neighborhoods and areas, the house may be fine, but look around at the area. I always encourage people drive around and look at the area and the surrounding area. Some areas like I sell in Houston, they don't have strict zoning laws. You really want to pay attention to that. I also sell in Las Vegas, and some of the laws in some areas and suburbs are pretty protected because they're master plan communities. So you do want to look at that. What you want to do is realize, is there declining infrastructure? Multiple for sale signs, that can be a red flag. Empty retail, definitely a red flag. School closures, red flag. Or stalled development signs, shrinking demand. That's showing you that that area is declining, and that is a red flag. A great house cannot outgrow failing ecosystem. There are several examples where you buy a new home, it looks nice and everything, or you buy a home in an area, it looks nice. And then once you spend time looking around, you find that you're not even shopping in the area stores. You feel fairly good in the home, but once you get outside of the home, it's a different story. So that would be a hard no. It's going to affect your appreciation. It's going to affect your enjoyment in the area where your home is. You can fix a house, but you can't fix a city block. That's for sure. Now, the next one is too good to be true deal. Deals usually come with baggage, heavy price drops, cash only listings, or distressed sales often hide structural issues, insurance problems, or legal complications. I've encountered properties where they're uninsurable. That's an issue for when you're getting a loan if you're a first time, or you're buying as your primary residence. That's definitely something to consider. Sometimes the lien holder resolves these issues, but many of times they don't. And then you're stuck with a great frustration, time spent, and maybe you've canceled on a deal and lost some money, or just don't even go there. Why is this a hard no? That's why. There's always a reason the price looks so good and easy. When it's too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. Next, the need to rationalize. This is a reality. If you're explaining it away and it's already wrong, this is something that you go by your feeling, intuition, just your sense of it.
It's not that bad. It just needs a little TLC. We will deal with the big stuff later.
Okay, I guess you're right. It has potential.
When buyers say, we'll deal with it later, or it's not that bad, they're negotiating against themselves. Listen to yourself. Emotional attachment clouds judgments. Just remember that. This would be a hard no when you're not feeling it, when it's not falling into place for you, or you're saying things like, we'll deal with it later. Emotional attachment clouds judgment, and real estate rewards clarity, not hope. This would be a hard no. Real estate does reward clarity, not hope. Final thought. Let's talk about it. A good home doesn't need excuses. If the risk feels heavy before you buy it, it will feel heavier after you own it. It's a hard no. Don't buy in a rush in the sense that you're saying, well, we'll make it work. Just remember all of these tips. If you're buying your first home or primary residence, protecting yourself matters more than chasing a deal. Remember that. I'm not saying don't get a deal, but these properties listed are homes that I would never buy. Now, if you're unsure whether a home is a smart buy or hidden liability, that's exactly where professional guidance comes in. Many of these things can be discovered before you even make a bad choice that will cost you a lot. And a professional that can guide you through the process is worth his or her weight in gold. These are the example of homes I would never buy. If you have any other comments about any additional things that you would think about that you would never buy, or some experiences that you've had, please drop them in the comments. Also, if you are looking for a property right now in Houston or Las Vegas, make sure you check the description box below and schedule a call. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.